Good evening, everyone. I am calling the meeting of the Select Board on Monday, March 16th at 7 a.m. to order. We have some business to attend. First, we have a Select Board member joining us by phone. So, Julie, I need to ask you some questions. Selectwoman Gilman, can you please identify yourself?
This is the Selectwoman Julie Gilman.
And do you have anybody there in the room with you?
I do not.
Great. And then I'd like to introduce our new board in advance of their swearing in. We have Daryl Brown, Levy Roundtree Olaf. I'm acting chair for tonight, and then Nico Papakostadis. So I think the first order of business is to swear in elected officials, some of whom we have here. Is that Paul? That's Paul.
Yeah, can I ask everybody that's going to be sworn in to leave to a front?
And keep 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Paul, does he need a microphone? Does he need a microphone?
We don't have one tonight.
When we do this, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand, and I'll start with I, say your name, we'll go through it, then it'll be I, say your name again. When I get to the part that says duties incumbent upon me as a state the board, you're going to be part of, it's going to sound jumbled. Don't worry about it, it's everything easy that way. So, you raise your right hand.
Fabiola.
Of Exeter, New Hampshire.
Of Exeter, New Hampshire.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will bear faithful and true allegiance
that I will bear faithful and true
to
allegiance
the United States of America and the state of New Hampshire,
to the United States of America and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the constitutions thereof, so help me God.
and will support the constitutions thereof, so help me God.
I
I, Levy Roundtree Olaf,
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations of this Constitution
agreeable to the rules and regulations of this Constitution
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Welcome back.
Can I just say one thing, Molly? I just want to say thank you from the elections last week. I would like to thank the supervisors of the checklist who did a great job. The select board who helped out all day long. To Andy's group, the town clerk for all their work, and especially the ballot clerks who did a terrific job all day long. They were there going through everybody knowing about the coronavirus and everything. I appreciate all them doing the hard work. And I apologize to the voters of Exeter for having 2 machines break, but there was nothing we could do about it. So I appreciate all their patience, and hopefully we'll see everybody in September. Thanks.
Paul, thank you and Andy for such swift action contacting the secretary to get a technician down to get those 2 machines fixed. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And just a quick note, there are a lot of people who were not here tonight who are going to be sworn in, and so we thank them for their service and for stepping up and also for staying away so that we can maintain the safety of this meeting. So next up is Select Board reorganization, which means we're going to reorganize. And my first duty as acting chair is going to be to nominate Nico Papakostadis to serve as chair.
Madam Chair, this is Selectwoman Gilman. I would second that.
Thank you. And the reason being, I think he is a calm, even hand. I've seen his work over the past year serving as the chair of the on the select board as vice chair. I've seen his work. I know he's done a lot of tremendous work with the Budget Recommendations Committee, and his expertise, particularly working with small towns and municipalities in Massachusetts, is going to be exactly what we need through this time. I am really honored that there is somebody so prepared to step up I do not have the time, as it is an election year for me, and I'm just so grateful that there's somebody capable to do this work. Are there any other comments?
Has there been a second?
There has been a second.
Okay.
I agree wholeheartedly.
I am in agreement.
Great. So I will call for the vote, and because we have a member who is on the phone, we have to do a roll call for every vote. So I'll call for the vote, and who's going to take dictation? Who's going to take the vote?
Joanna is doing the minutes of the meeting. She is just remote
Got it.
tonight.
Good.
Okay, so I'll call the roll. Select Board Member Brown.
Aye.
Select Board Member Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Cowan votes aye. Select Board Member Julie Gilman.
Aye.
Select Board Member Nico Papakostendis.
Aye.
It is unanimous, and I am giving up this chair. Here, I'll sanitize the...
Should we just stay here?
I think-
That's fine. Well, thank you very much. I'm most honored and humbled, and I hope I can live up to it. Thank you for your kind words. I now would like to nominate Molly Cowan as Vice Chair of the Select Board.
I second that nomination.
Any other comments? Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
Papakostendis says aye. Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Next, I would like to nominate Selectwoman Julie Gilman to serve as clerk.
And that traditionally goes to a new member of the board. So Julie, if you want the position, or what's your preference here?
I can do it. I think that we ought to give somebody new to the board the position so they can learn
Okay.
what
Okay.
we do here.
But it's also like, do you want to flip for it? What's the...
No, the process is if you get more than one nomination, then everybody votes.
Oh, everybody votes. Okay.
So should I rescind my motion? If
If no one else is nominated, I will happily take the position.
Okay. What...
Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Are there other nominees?
Are there other
Do you want
nominees?
to
Yeah.
do it that way?
Could we hear some of the
So
duties?
so the duties are to call the roll, if there's a roll call. The duties are also to read aloud the abatement requests, but there's no actual clerk duties, like you don't have to submit the minutes or anything like that.
Got it.
it's mostly during the meetings, reading
Yeah.
proclamations, tax abatements, credits, etc.
And Julie, could I ask on a scale of 1 to 10 what your excitement is for doing this?
What is your excitement level for doing this on a scale of 1 to 10?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I can carry it. It's no problem.
Okay. The is the
Oh,
phone
it's
too?
the phone.
Yeah.
So do I have to call the roll?
I'll call the roll. Select Board Member Brown.
Aye.
Select Board Member Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
I vote aye. Select Board Member Papakostendis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Julie Gilman.
Aye.
Great.
Okay, so the board is reorganized.
Yep.
Thank you. Before we get into public comment and any other business, as we all know, we've reached some troubling times here in the country, in the state, and in the town, obviously. And over the last several days, the town leadership has been working pretty much around the clock to try to figure out what our next moves are going to be and how we can best keep the town safe, how we can keep our community safe, our citizens, our town employees, and seek whatever guidance we can from the state and federal government. We've had multiple meetings, and tonight we have the town manager We have somebody from the DPW Highway Superintendent, Mr. Perkins. We have Chief Wilking and Chief Poulin here to talk about what the town has done already and what we anticipate and where we're going to go. Please keep in mind that, you know, whatever we do moving forward is going to be fluid, I think, because there's just so much unknown. But the number one priority is keeping the community safe and taking measures to continue to do so. And I know Mr. Dean's also going to talk about something that's somewhat foreign to municipal government, not only here in Exeter and New Hampshire, but across the nation, and that's virtual government. And that's how we can best continue to govern seamlessly and uninterrupted, but also keeping our employees safe. So, Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would characterize the last week as probably a week like none of us have really ever seen. Unprecedented, uncharted waters, a lot of meetings and a lot of action steps, as much as we can to positively influence the crisis that we're in right now. And I really want to recognize and just thank the great team that we have around us, because especially the folks that are here tonight, Deputy Chief Monk as well, Assistant Fire Chief Pizon, our Health Officer James Murray, Jay Perkins, our Highway Superintendent, Jennifer Perry, our Public Works Director, really everyone that represents our team that we are really falling heavily on in these times. And we're here for the community. We have been working diligently behind the scenes with your support and with Selectwoman Cowan's support. And I know we have 2 new board members that are jumping right in at probably one of the most inconceivable times they could think of to tackle some of these issues. So we really appreciate all of you and your support, and Selectwoman Gilman, who I know is remote tonight, and we're thinking of her too. So we have gone through a process of the last few days of coordinating resources, sharing ideas, getting news as it unfolds by the hour, and working to assist our employees and the community, as well as protecting ourselves. And that's really the cornerstone of what we're all about at the moment. And as we know, there have been several, if you call them press releases, declarations of emergency, directives given from the governor's office. We have had conversations with state leaders, with federal leaders, to put ourselves in the queue and get that word out about the needs of the town and the needs really of the SAU region, at least, in terms of what we need to be working on together while we're in sort of one of the most odd situations you'll see here around the table, which is exactly the social distancing that they're talking about at the CDC, and trying to come together when the real direction seems to be stay home and stay apart and stay isolated. So it's been very complex. And I can tell you that we've focused administratively in a lot of different areas. We are making sure that we emphasize with our employees that no one is to be penalized. We have made sure that we have taken extra efforts to find out through our department heads, who have done a great job with this, what's going on the ground for our employees in terms of if somebody is sick, that they're staying home, that we're taking extra cautionary measures around those issues for our other employees. And as recently as today, we are still open, but I know we're going to be talking about that more as we go tonight. We have considerations to take into account, and we are moving toward a more virtual landing spot, if you will, where we feel it's a recommendation that we certainly would make, that we feel most comfortable that if our municipal buildings were closed to the public and we go into a different stage of serving the public over at least the next couple of weeks, and we could probably talk about a date that we could put on that, but this is a trend that is happening too around the state right now. There are others that are putting their own plans into action and and working on executing those plans. And so we're right in there as well. That sort of sets the framework for where we are at the moment, and I'm sure as we get into it, Assistant Chief Wilking, I know, will fill in some of the blanks around the COVID-19 issues we've been working on, and we can have a little Q&A and back and forth. I'm sure you have questions, and I want to turn it over to him for a few minutes to talk about that, and we'll come back to me.
Thank you, Russ. Eric Wilkie, Assistant Vice Chief of Operations and Deputy Emergency Management Director. I'm stepping in tonight for Chief Brian Como, who couldn't be here. He is also the Emergency Management Director. So, as Russ alluded to over the last couple of weeks, I've kind of taken a point on moving the ball forward, working with James Murray, our health officer, and Russ, and some really good folks that we've had on our team. So things just to start us down the road. Just to give you a picture of how quickly things change. At our 9 o'clock meeting this morning in this very room, for about an hour, we laid out what we felt was a really good plan moving forward to share some information. By noon time, during a teleconference, that information already changed. And at 4 o'clock this afternoon, we're already to go home. The governor stepped up and took some actions in the state. So that is how dynamic and changing this is. Right away. And that's why some of the information we've been pushing out, we ask people to follow the websites. We refer them to the New Hampshire Department of Health, the New Hampshire DHHS, and the CD website for the best, most timely information. Don't rely on things you received at a meeting like tonight. Don't rely on something you printed yesterday, because it perhaps already timely. So with that, up-to-date information, 17 persons in the state of Hampshire have tested positive with coronavirus, short COVID-19, 10 of which are in Rockingham County. So we seem to be a little more active. There are 5 people in Grafton County and 1 in Hillsborough in the Nashua area. If you watch the news, you hear many of the same numbers. 195 tests are still pending. That's up 100 from yesterday. So now the tests are becoming more available, more people are getting tested or lining up to be authorized for testing. So that number has doubled. And we're still surveilling and monitoring over 500 people in the state of New Hampshire. So big numbers. These numbers will continue to change. We just hope they don't spike like we've seen in the news. If you watch the news this afternoon, you realize the governor of the state of New Hampshire has asked that all restaurants close as of business tomorrow. They will be authorized to do takeout service and delivery service. However, we're trying to limit gatherings. The 2 things that have really been found to be effective on the coronavirus is social distancing. You see we're all 6 or 8 feet apart here tonight and approaching about Jay's space. And that of just trying to use good hygiene, washing regularly where washing isn't available, hand sanitizer, hand wash, things like that. And I fully understand and respect that. A lot of that is not available. And it's been gobbled up. You go to the stores now, doesn't matter if it's your local hardware store or grocery store, you're not going to find a great deal of hand sanitizer or wipe. So wash as much as you can with good soap. 20 seconds is the minimum. We're teaching children to sing happy birthday twice while you're at the sink. So ways to get the word out. So I just want to get as much of this out as I can so those that are listening can pick it up. One of the things that we've been pushing hard on, and Russ has been taking the point on, is offering Exeter as a potential testing location for what you're hearing in the news, a mobile test site, where a person can pull up in their vehicle, not have to get out of the vehicle, thereby limiting exposure to emergency department staff, emergency workers, and become swabbed. It is not an easy process. So those that are doing the testing have to be basically fully encapsulated with masks, eye protection, gowns, and gloves. But we are doing that, and we had a long discussion today with local public health people in the Seacoast region, and offer that as a test site, because obviously the Seacoast region has the most effective people, and it makes sense, and that is ongoing. So as we roll into tomorrow, Wednesday, we should hear more about that and how that's going to perhaps take place. We're asking those that are listening tonight and our residents who feel they've had contact with somebody feel they're exhibiting symptoms, and I'll cover those in a second, of the coronavirus or COVID-19, to not go directly to the emergency department, either Exeter Hospital, Portsmouth Regional. They are not equipped, that they don't want that inflow of patients because everybody in the ED would then be infected or affected, if you will. But we ask that you contact your PCP, work with your personal care physician over the phone. They will direct you, and if you indicate there are enough symptoms of that, thank you so much. If you indicate that you have symptoms of that, they will direct you to the proper course of action, whether it is to call an ambulance or whether it is to go to the hospital. But right now, the best course of action is to stay at home. It's the flu, cold-like flu symptoms, nausea, headache, fatigue, sore throat, cough, and a fever. So if that kind of stuff comes up, we ask a lot of us can take over-the-counter medication just to mitigate those best we can, suffer with it for 4 or 5 days, and I respectfully understand what that means, but the fewer times you have to get out and infect the rest of the population, the better off we all are. So we've covered pretty much the symptoms. I want to just give you a picture where Fire EMS is, as I saw as a report. So this is a Fire EMS report. We have 2 ambulances ready to roll. To date, we have had very few calls that we'd even put in the category of people with symptoms of the coronavirus. We still respond to the typical calls of breathing difficulty and chest pain, indicative to our response area of the town of Exeter. We're responding about 10 or 12 EMS calls a day. Right now, we have not seen a spike in that increase. We currently have 1 employee out on long-term injury and surgery. We don't expect that employee back for 6 months. But on the good news side of the house, our probationary employee we hired to fill a retiree starts tomorrow. So we're still staffed up pretty well. We feel confident that we'll be able to continue the response. Big shout out to the school department. With the governor asking the schools to close and consider a 3-week closure through to April 3rd, we reached out to the schools and we found out that they have an electrostatic cleaning machine or a disinfectant machine that they use to clean classrooms and bathrooms. Like, we asked if the fire department could use it for the 3 weeks that the school is closed. We have ordered one, but it has been back ordered for about 30 days. The schools absolutely said yes. They delivered it today. So what does that mean? It means we can disinfect the back of our ambulances in a very short amount of time to turn them over to be clean for the next patient we pick up. So it's just an aerosol to spray or an atomized spray that kills the bacteria on contact. Very short time frame to get the ambulance in service, to dry it out, and we're ready to go. So we'll be bouncing back between our 2 ambulances if the need arises and we see a spike in calls. At this time, we feel we have adequate personal protective equipment to do the call volume. We have a plethora of gloves, thousands of gloves in stock. That's been the one thing that we were able to get ahead of. Protective gowns and protective masks, a little bit less. We feel we're good for the next 2 weeks to 30 days, but not knowing the spike in call volume, that number could dwindle. But we put in requests for the state, and they've been able to fill some requests as of today, so we feel comfortable right now with our level of protective equipment, but that could change, so we're always watching that. Like you, we are running low on hand sanitizer, and I'll use the term a Clorox wipe, a cloth wipe pre-moistened. They're becoming scarce and hard to find, but we have acquired some sanitizer solution, so we're moving from our standpoint of cleaning the public safety complex to a spray bottle and a wipe down. So instead of using a pre-moistened wipe and throwing it away, we're moving to a more of a disinfectant material, but we are still disinfecting the buildings, the vehicles, the doorknobs, the handles, all that, a minimum of twice a day, depending on patient contact. We already mentioned earlier, but I'll repeat it one more time. We ask that the citizens and we all continue to refer to the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services website. That is dhhs.nh.gov. And right in the center of the page, you'll see a link to the COVID-19 or the coronavirus. Touch that link, and the entire daily summary pops up. So any changes in recommendations and status, certainly changes in patient count or infected count, will be reflected on that page. From that page, you can also go to frequently asked questions, which help a lot of us out on discussing social distancing and things of that nature. As with any virus, I would just implore you again to use good personal hygiene, including hand washing, cover your mouth and nose if you have to cough or sneeze. Try not to touch your face. Easier said than done. We're all in a habit of nose, mouth, ears, eyes. Those are the common routes of entry with any virus. So everything you touch that had the virus on it, it's been known to live 3 to 4 days on surfaces. You pick it up, you touch your eye, you rub your nose, it's a route of entry. That's why they try not to do that. So constant hand washing, sanitizers, minimize that, but those are routes of entry. Avoid close contact. We're not saying don't go to the supermarket. We're not saying don't go to Walmart. Don't go downtown and pick up your dinner. Just keep in mind, if you can stay 6 feet apart of the customer in front of you, which is perhaps the length of the shopping cart, just understand those are your best practices to keep yourself and your family safe. Because the minute, as Julie found out, the minute somebody is found to have been near somebody infected or whatever, the process of quarantining comes in for the greater good. And we end up all having to stay home and be bored to tears. When disinfecting, think of things you touch repeatedly. Best disinfecting surfaces are doorknobs, door handles, handrails, countertops, anything people lean on or touch when they would come in, perhaps to set down paperwork. So we talked with the clerk's office and others, and I know we're talking about going to a different platform to continue business, but all of those surfaces that anybody from the outside can touch should have repeated cleaning. Your door handles, your car steering wheel, anything that you'll touch after touching something else, that virus would stay on. So when you re-enter your vehicle, your hands have got to touch that steering wheel again. So just be thinking of those areas. Don't forget really common things, and we'll all make it through this fine. Stay home if you're exhibiting symptoms, and especially the fever. The symptoms can mimic the flu. They can mimic a number of different things like a cold, or even allergy season's coming, where the pollen count is coming up, people are getting runny noses, their eyes are watering, they're sneezing and coughing. Those are normal springtime things that are happening, but typically a pollen sneeze is not going to bring on a fever. So a fever of over 100.4 or higher, there's a good chance that you have something going on internally. Your body is fighting the virus internally, and that would trigger the question. Call your PCP. I've got some symptoms, and it includes a fever today. Those would be reasons to go ahead and call for help. I will, at this time, I'm going to step back. I could go on forever. The meetings, we have a ton of information to share, but I'd like to make sure that
I was just going to say, I had 2 questions, if I may, and then I wanted to see if the board had any questions of you first, Chief. And my 2 questions are, how comfortable are you that we can efficiently replace resources in the next couple of weeks once you've used them? And also, if you could advise folks at home how they can best check on seniors that may be alone.
That's a great point. Let's start with the first question. Durable supplies, I do not have a huge comfort level that they're going to be available. The supply chains are doing a better job, but they have not caught up yet. We've all seen the news, or perhaps you've seen the news, companies that make masks are producing them by the hundreds of thousands, but are barely catching up to some of the orders, so it could be some time. Having great relationships with our partners, the mutual aid network we have in the whole Seacoast region for fire and EMS will allow us to do that. But one thing I just want to speak to PPE and those goods, where we found out from the police department this morning that they have no appreciable amount of personal protective equipment. They do not carry masks such as an N95 or a surgical mask. They do not have gowns. They've got gloves, and we can certainly supplement those. But things like that within our own department, we now need to think, how do we help protect our law enforcement officers? And you might ask, well, why would they even be infected? They don't run on medical calls routinely. They are in contact with subjects constantly, and they don't know when they step into a situation. They don't have time to ask, have you traveled out of the country? Have you done this? Have you done that? Do you have a fever? Stay right there. I'm going to give you a mask. That's not how it works. So we have to kind of be proactively thinking. So our numbers have ballooned up a little bit. But to answer your question, I don't have a warm and fuzzy. Okay. Today it's okay. The state tells us that remain calm. We'll help you with that supply chain. And I think in time it will be there. Okay. I made a comment this morning that we need to plan for a marathon, not a sprint. I think you're going to see this last, and this is a personal opinion, not one of the CDC, 2 months or better. I heard 5 months this afternoon. I think we've got to just think about the long term. Short term, I think we're in great shape.
Okay, thank you.
The
seniors.
Shout out to the schools. We found out this morning the schools are doing a great job with the school-age children who rely heavily on the meals that they get at school. We heard there's a plan in place. Every day they deliver a lunch to the homes. I think they said they had 5 locations that they're moving food out to. And with that lunch is the next day's breakfast. So the children who rely heavily on that are getting a lunch and a breakfast. We have identified a senior population. We are in contact, we meaning the fire health department, are in contact daily with our known elderly population hubs, the Riverwoods, the Langdon Place, the Genesis, things like that. We identified this morning homes like 277 Water Street, where a number of seniors live, the Mill Apartments, the Exeter River Landing Manufactured Housing Park, which has a large senior population that we have to do a better job, and we've reached out today. We're waiting for some feedback from the management of those facilities to help us identify seniors that perhaps haven't been able to get out or experience the same shortages we all did last week when people made a big rush on the stores. And again, the one part of I don't want to make it sound negative of my generation, but the one generation that will follow the rules to the T is the older generation. If they're told to quarantine, stay in, social distancing, they will likely go hungry than shop. So we want to make sure that we are going to offer those opportunities. I don't have a contact person yet. Russ and I spoke this afternoon on that. As that becomes available, we'll put that out on EXTV and on other avenues of social media, but that is on the forefront. It's either going to be a fire official or a town office official. We will work with somebody to contact if you're experiencing shortages of food or need help with medication and stuff, because long term, we're talking a couple of months here. This is not a short duration. The heat will be back on in 2 days. We've got to really, consider those things.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Wilkin from the board?
I have some questions. So some of the things that I've been seeing or hearing about are, worries about utilities being shut off or, not being turned on again. What is your best advice if that happens, especially since it's still very cold out?
Absolutely. I would say I'm not privy to those. I'm unaware that would happen. The circles I've been running and talk about the insurance industry, making sure everybody is going to be covered and whatnot. I would say if somebody is experiencing a shut-off at this time of year due to obviously lack of payment or whatever, to contact somebody in the town and let us work on your behalf on the state to see what we can do. We may not have the horsepower to pull that off, but we'll certainly work for that. But everything we're hearing from the governor's office to the president's office is no one will be left behind. We don't want people to fall through the cracks. We don't want, people to worry about the next meal or whatnot. So it'll be hard, but I think we need to do that. So.
Okay, and the other resource in addition to what you said is to call the 211 number, which is the governor's office or the government, to make sure that they're hearing about things like this too.
Correct, and that's a great information line. I'm not sure I'd call 211 if a utility, I won't name any, shutting the power off. I'm not sure that's where I'd call, although it can't hurt. But if you're looking for information and guidance, the 211 lines are staffed. The Bureau of EMS, along with the Fire Academy, Fire Marshal's office, is supplementing staff. One thing is they found is the staff was running short. The same 211 lines are being used for substance abuse and those seeking help with that. So the 211 is a wide variety of phone in now. So this coronavirus is just one topic that the 211 line is filling that hole with. So, but absolutely use it as a resource. Call. Never feel you can't call the fire department. We're kind of there as an all hazards approach. If we don't have an answer, we'll find it for you in the shortest amount of time possible. But we want to make sure that we're here. We're all working together.
I did have 2 questions.
Sure.
One was about homemade disinfectant. Is there a way, you mentioned the run on supplies, is there a way for people to make their own?
Well, there is, but from what, and I wish Andy Cola was still here because Andy, your town clerk, had enough foresight going into the elections to find out she made the rounds, could not buy the pre-measured Purell-style hand sanitizer, but was able to find some aloe and following the directions that have been given on several websites out there, do an appropriate mixture between alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, not the good stuff, and the hand sanitizer. Other than that, I think anything that would normally be used as a disinfectant, many things that are bleach-related topics or containers will say right on it, will kill viruses and bacteria. So at a stopgap, something to the point like a bleach surface just wiped down with water will work. I don't have the recipes. I can find the recipes if you like, but most will work. Even Windex, to the point where if it's a surface cleaner, it'll say on it whether it is or not. Believe it or not, the term coronavirus is not new. The coronavirus is a term they have given to flu-like symptoms for years and years and years. The reason we have the coronavirus 19 is there are 18 previous coronaviruses that have been identified. So a lot of product out there, when you pick it up and look on the back, it'll say it's approved for the coronavirus, only because that term has been used for years. It's nothing like they changed the label out just to sell it. So there should be a level of comfort there that that product will work. I saw people, and this is, I'm just editorializing, had ammonia and hydrogen peroxide in their cart because everything else was sold out. I'm not sure if hydrogen peroxide and ammonia will kill anything. It might, but I'm not sure that the recipe that I want to add stuff to it. You know, you might just be generating another EMS call. I don't know, but just, so I'd be fearful of that. A lot of stuff is found on the internet, and there's a lot of good information from the internet, but there's a lot of erroneous things as well. So 211 might be a great avenue to call to find out, are there alternatives to the ready-made store-bought hand sanitizers and wash the wipes?
Thank you. And then the second question is, the governor's recommended restaurants close. Other small businesses or businesses in town, what measures should they take if, you know, they're not a restaurant and they're not high volume?
I would love to offer advice on that, but that's really not my avenue. I think what we saw today in downtown Exeter is indicative of what we're going to see for a while. I can't tell a storefront what they should do upon opening, closing, reducing hours, but I think the foot traffic is going to be greatly reduced just by the virtue of asking people to stay home, social distancing, isolating them to your family unit and staying there. I think this is going to be a rocky road for a while, and I think we've had a lot of conversations, town leadership-wide, what it looks like on the other side of this, what recovery looks like, how long it's going to take. But I think it's way too early to predict that. And I would refer that kind of question to Russ and the economic director. Like I said, I'm not sure I want to weigh in on what other stores should do other than food service.
Yeah, and what we're doing right now is Darren Wyndham, who is our economic development director, is sort of taken on that role of business liaison, which he is anyway, but in the special circumstance that we're in right now, he is actually out sort of communicating in different areas of the town, in the commercial sector and the businesses, just to get feedback. We haven't had any kind of an absolute close down, do it order. So other than the bars and restaurants, and so from that perspective, we're still fluid, I think, on that front, and we'll just have to see what happens next. But the new declaration that happened today with the 10 people gatherings is something that we need to have a conversation about as well. And literally, since it came this afternoon, that's something that we'll be discussing at a staff level tomorrow, just to get our arms around how we are going to handle that internally, and so forth. So things keep developing, and we can't, again, I think the chief's correct, we can't mandate, but what we need is direction, and we need strong guidance, and more than guidance, ways to be consistent across the board with a lot of these things. And we'll keep looking for that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you both for running, and welcome to Leadership of Exeter. What a great time
It's a wonderful
miss
time.
the leadership. There you go. Good news, bad news. Any questions?
Well, my question probably would be more for similar in terms of, have we spoken with the local supermarkets? Have we had conversations about excessive purchasing to allow for other people to get access to, I mean, I know that's maybe outside of our purview, but just curious as if we've had those conversations or we plan to have those conversations.
We haven't had those yet, but I think we will be having those in the next couple of days. We've been so focused on a lot of the
Immediate
developing aspects of all of this on the public safety side and the public health side that we just haven't had the bandwidth yet to
get to that.
ponder that and get out and really have a good conversation with those people. But I think in the next couple of days you'll see us reach out and do that and see what the feedback is like.
Okay, that's good.
I think one of the most interesting comments that I heard about last Thursday or Friday from a senior official in the city of Manchester was on that very topic. He says something to the effect, we understand that what seems to be hoarding and whatnot, people doing what they feel they need to do to protect their families seems excessive. But he put it this way, if that's what makes you more comfortable and reduces your anxiety, we are not going to stop that. Because if people feel that they've done something to protect their family, to reduce their anxiety, that if they wait a week, they're not going to get these things, whether it's toilet paper or frozen food, they are limiting their anxiety and they're going to be better off for it. Does it look different? Yeah, it looks very different when you go in a supermarket or a Walmart and the shelves are empty for a day or two and then restocking. We've been assured by the grocery suppliers and the wholesalers that there is not a food shortage and that the truck drivers are still delivering. And again, only time will tell, back to your question, how good those chains are, but today they are still solid and they are still good. We're still working out well. So if it reduces your anxiety, and that's what you want, it was an interesting look at that from one of the Manchester leaders, but how you just use that as a comment.
Chief, thank you so much. Chief Poulin.
Before you step up, I will give that to you for the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Chief Poulin. So just to give you a little input on the police department side of things, our main concern is obviously staffing as well, so that we can continue to respond and be there to help when people need us. And how we're doing that is our dispatch center is asking more questions now on the phone when people call in. They're called screening questions in line with the CDC. And we're also asking if people don't need to come to the police department, if they can make a request over the phone and then have an officer call them back. That would be very feasible as well. The police department is open, the lobby is open, and it will be for people that have to come in for whatever reason, but they may be greeted by the dispatcher or by someone at the front window, and they may be asked to leave their name and phone number and have an officer get back to them. Also for calls, Ms. Collins is exactly right with 211. If you have questions regarding the actual coronavirus or some of the things in place, you can call 211. We don't want to see people call 911 if they don't absolutely need help. And I would just want to again reiterate that we have standing mutual aid agreements with all our surrounding agencies, and that includes all of Rockingham County and the state police as well. So we've all been in communications, and if we do fall below staffing level and we need help, surrounding agencies will help us out, and just like vice versa, we're going to help them out.
Any questions for Chief Poulin?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I can hear everybody really well except for you.
Except for me.
I just wanted to add that I will be on a conference call with the White House, something or other, a briefing call with the folks that are organizing the response to the COVID-19. I've invited you and the Vice Chair and Mr. Dean to join us. We should pass it on to the Fire Department, Fire Chief and Chief Assistant Chief. I would like to add, I think Assistant Chief Wilkins talked about the home recipe for hand sanitizer, and I just wanted to reiterate that. It's online, and when we talk about alcohol, we don't mean whiskey. I think that's all I have. The State House is closed until next week, and it will reconsider what the rest of the month looks like.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Jay, did you have anything to add?
Jay Perkins, Highway Superintendent, Jennifer Perry.
It's Jay Perkins. He always talks
Hi,
quietly.
Julie. Jennifer Perry, the Public Works Director, could not be here tonight, so she sent me in her place. Just to echo what the two chiefs have said, that we're concerned with staffing levels. So far, we're doing okay. We're doing a lot of cleaning right now. We have some personal protective equipment in stock, and we're just trying to maintain the essential functions of the town. And so far, everything's well. Water, sewer, and roads are our primary concern to keep everything moving so the fellows can get to where they need to go. But it's changing daily, and we're doing okay so far.
Thank you.
Question. Do you expect any changes to trash pickup?
Yes.
Not at this time.
Great.
Been in some communication with Waste Management, and they're running as usual right now. So
Okay.
we'll keep you posted, but from what they're saying, they're just going to keep moving ahead.
Okay, that's
And-
helpful.
And just a quick follow-up. If citizens have trouble accessing the blue bags, will they pick up trash, or will that be left aside and they'll have to take it to the town dump? Are there any, I don't know if there's a backup on the blue bags, or if, you know, similarly speaking, people are purchasing excessive
I got a
blue
call
bags?
today. One store ran out of the blue bags, but I reached out to Way Zero where we get them, and they say they're operating full function, and their trucks are moving. So if we do run out, that would be a question for the town manager, but I would say that we wouldn't leave it on the side of the road.
Okay, because I just want people, you know, to, especially if we're trying to minimize the amount of
Right, that would
outdoor
just-
time going from store to store to store.
Right.
If people go to one place and they've run out, that we don't have a,
Right.
you know, issue with people feeling like they don't have an alternative option for trash disposal. Okay.
So one thing I have in my midst here is a binder, because I like binders, and we are getting notifications left and right all day long from various organizations that are either community-based organizations or vendors that we do business with. Waste Zero is actually one of those that sent something along today, so when we get a chance to pull this together, we'll PDF it and send it out to the board so you can see exactly how much correspondence has come in, what different companies are doing, and what different organizations are doing. It's really just it's a plethora of information that's coming in fast and furious. So we're trying to control it, and then and we'll get it out to you so you can see. And it will probably lead to more questions, but you'll have the information.
Thank you.
I had two questions. So one was about your coverage, like how are you for, you mentioned staffing seems okay now. How much coverage, are you over 100%? Or?
No, we're down a few people right now that are out, but we're close to 100%.
Okay, and then it's sort of an open question, is additional training required for anywhere that needs to be cleaned? Like, are there other ways, more stringent substances or techniques that need to be used now that you're aware of?
We're doing additional cleaning now that we've not done before. You know, on a frequent basis, we're wiping down trucks, doorknobs, dashes, and steering wheels and things like that, because there are different drivers getting into them. So that's evolving as we go, and we're trying to avoid contact with the public as much as we can. And we're telling the folks if they're sick, stay home.
Yeah.
So we're doing everything we can in our power. We're learning every day something new and how to keep.
Yeah, so just to that point, like say two of your guys get sick, does that put you in a huge?
Right. So we're trying to minimize that.
Yeah.
Keep everything clean, and
'Cause I
we're
think-
emphasizing, as the chief said, wash the hands and just exercise good hygiene.
Because your department's probably the best. That's the best prevention the town has as far as the spread would go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. So I think, as town leadership, that we just need to make sure that we're constantly communicating as best we can to the public in every way we can, whether it be social media, Exeter TV. But I think communication is going to be key, so folks know what's the next step that the town's taking. Mr. Dean, could you go over what is now closed to the public, what town facilities or town resources are closed? And then also, I think a question folks have is, what can they do, if anything, to help the town and the community?
So today, I had a conversation with the library director about the facility there, and the decision was made, that's a decision that's made by the trustees and the director to close effective now through at least April 20th. So again, these dates, the out dates, I think, are fluid. It just depends on the situation and what happens. So that's the status of that. We have canceled Parks and Rec activities, so we're not having any activities. We've also closed the senior center to the public indefinitely. So those are the core facilities that have closed at this point, and the activities that have been compromised, if you will, or shut down. So that is that, and as I said, we are looking at the plan we would have for the other facilities is to, and we're going to have a little bit more conversation about this tomorrow, but the intent that we have is to close the buildings to the public and to have a system set up where people can reach out to the offices, get somebody if they need to do some kind of a service. We're going to encourage people to do as much business as they can with us electronically. We'll get the word out about that. So that's our intention, is to operate on that way. We do have to have a conversation about the transfer station. At this point, I'm leaning toward closing that. I think that would be a wise move. We do need to talk about that, and just to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted on that. We're also in the midst of having a conversation about all of our committees. As you see, this is for the select board one thing, but zoning board, planning board, this is uncharted territory here. So, my recommendation is that if a board doesn't have to meet, that they plan on not meeting until May 1st. Basically, put that in place right now. And if things work out better, great, and we'll be able to get back into it per normal. But in the near term, it seems to make sense that unless there was a board that really had to do business legally, and even on that front, I know Dave has been working diligently, because planning board and zoning board do have cases that come in, people apply, and there's a statutory window that they need to be heard in, and we're actually going to great lengths right now to get agreements in place to extend those periods of time, because it's not just about the applicants too, it's also about our boards themselves. We have elderly people that serve on our boards. They could be vulnerable. They don't want to come into a public meeting setting, and we totally understand that. So as we collectively think about this issue, that's where we are with it right now, and we're being very proactive on it and getting the word out, and likely saying, basically, unless it's essential, super essential, absolutely has to happen, that we ratchet all of those committees back till May 1st. So that's where we are with that. We are doing our best to ration our cleaning supplies. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of disinfecting, as you've been hearing. We have Clean by the Sea that is our contract cleaner. They do a good job using high-quality products that help with potential coronavirus, so that is good. We have addressed any employees that have traveled, so we have that. We feel like we have that under control and a good system to deal with that. It's very limited. We only have 1 or 2 instances of that, and we're addressing that directly with those employees. The staggered schedule is something that we'll probably be talking about more in the next day or so, as we mentioned, and and I think that was actually everything on my list right now. I do want to point out that we have, in the meeting that was referred to earlier this morning at 9 o'clock, we had officials from the hospital attending that meeting. We also had the Seacoast Public Health Network involved in that meeting. Our health officer was in that meeting as well. I did get a chance to meet with Principal Rawson from the Academy on Friday. He and I spent a good hour talking about their procedures and what they are doing. So we are in contact and continuing to have conversations around their virtual learning, which is scheduled to end, I think, at this point on April 13th, but again is subject to an extension based upon what they decide to do there. I think the one concern that I'm just going to raise, amongst probably several at this point, is just that my assistant Pam does the Welfare and Human Services component of the town's mission in that area, and so we are just, and I think it's just something we need to keep talking through, very concerned about getting inundated with requests and calls. I mean, in a situation like this, you can't necessarily avoid that. And so there's going to have to be some give and take on that front. But I just want everybody thinking about that, because I think it's a big issue that's right in front of us. And I just don't, I want to be sensitive to trying not to overburden any one area of our operation, because people are already, they're already stretched, and you can imagine the dynamics there. So just to keep that in mind. And I think that was everything I had. Right now we have signs on buildings that you'll see that are telling people that are coming to the buildings, if you have symptoms, if you are having these issues, please do not come in and call us instead. But as I said, I think at this point we need to prepare for, and I'm not sure exactly when, we're trying to work out that time frame, but an actual closing and sort of morphing into this other area of trying to do things more virtually I really hope is the near term. So.
Do we have a resource if folks reach out and want to help the community, whether it be food or supplies or anything of that? Is there any resource within the town that folks can come to that would direct them as to where they could go to offer their help?
So we're working closely with St. Vincent de Paul.
Okay.
So our answer to that is please call them directly. They are setting up guidelines for how they're managing their food intake, if you will, in delivery, and I don't want to quote all their rules and regs that they're accepting and what they're not, but if people are interested in that piece particularly, please reach out to them. We are in contact with them, so we're having those conversations too.
Okay.
But they have resources to be able to take those kinds of calls specifically.
Great, thank you.
And I do have a question, actually, for the police department. And it may seem, I don't know, I'm just going to pose it and see if you have an answer for that. Because a lot of people are being told to stay home, not everyone's family situation is perfect. Do we have resources? Do we have what's available for families that feel like home is not the safe place to be for an extended period of time with other people in their homes? I'm trying to find the most delicate way to put that. Okay. If you have any information on that we could also figure out a way to share with the public, that would be helpful.
So in any kind of instance like that where someone doesn't feel safe, you can always call the police and we will respond. So we're not changing any method of response to those type of calls.
Are there, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out if there are for those who may not feel comfortable just maybe making a 911 call or calling, is there some sort of more subtle way that people can reach out for assistance?
So there's different types of like victims advocate groups. Safe Haven is one of them.
Okay.
And that's what I would direct them towards. But they don't have to call 911. They can call and speak directly to dispatch and ask to remain anonymous and have an officer check the situation out. That can happen as well.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your input. Obviously, this is going to be an ongoing discussion, and everything's going to be fluid, not only by the day, but by the hour, I think. So ongoing communication, I think, will be key amongst us and the town. Before we move on, any other questions for any of the folks here? Mr. Dean from the board?
I mean, I have just oh, go ahead.
You bring up a very good question, and it's one that we had a discussion today about the town parks, and I know Greg Bassan is not here to speak to that, but very soon, if not today, you're going to be seeing signs at our town parks recommending that people do not use the parks because we cannot keep them clean, all the way down to children and parents on the parks. It is going to be a long 2 to 3 weeks. Fully respect that and understand that. Got to look for alternative ways to interact singularly with your family, whether it's down to the beach, a hiking trail in the Henderson Swayze Forest, whatever it takes to get out and get energy, understood. But I know one of the things we may not want to consider is the use of the parks and the playground equipment that cannot be cleaned because you just don't know. And again, the idea is social distancing. Right. The idea is isolation. I hate that term, but it's what we need to do. It's the only thing that hasn't been practiced from Asia through Europe to the United States is the true early social distancing. And I won't say we're early, we're already 2 weeks or plus into this, but we're hoping that this helps. We're hoping this flattens out the spike. So just keep that in mind. And I always wanted to get it out there that people may see signs out at the parks and our playgrounds that look for alternative safe ways to get out and use up energy.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I just want to really reiterate the points that have been made here about we're taking this very seriously. There's a reason that schools and restaurants are closing. There's a reason we're telling you not to go to the parks. And in order to protect the vulnerable people in our population, in order not to overwhelm our hospital beds, it's really important and imperative that you follow these rules and suggestions. The other place that I would urge folks to look for food is our local farms and neighbors who raise chickens and things like that. That is a really good place. I know I worry a lot about the economic impact for small businesses, small farmers, and our neighbors here around the seacoast, and that's a really good place to find fresh foods. And then to your point, Levy, I think it's a really good point about reaching out for services if you need them. As you've heard tonight, our police and fire are, incredibly in tune with what's happening in the state. The 211 is a really good resource, and also our town government is a good resource until something changes and you have to call a different number. But I would really encourage folks to take this really seriously.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman, did you have anything to add before we move on?
Mr. Chair, if I might interrupt, a couple of things. With the shutdown of the restaurants, depending on the federal money that we get, there are going to be small business loans or just outright cash advantage. So while there's still worry about the loss of business and the loss of employees' pay, there is going to be some backup. I can't tell you how much. As far as the utilities go, I think I've heard from every utility that serves Exeter, and they will not turn off anything until the state of emergency is over. And I just want to reiterate, if you have questions, call 211. They're phone banked up and ready to take your questions and direct you to where you need to go.
Thanks, Julie.
Great, thank you, Julie. Any other questions or comments? Great, thank you. Moving on, we have public comment. I don't think we have any public, but I'll offer that up. Okay. We don't have any proclamations, recognitions tonight. We do have approval of minutes for the Select Board meeting of March 2nd, 2020, and
I'll move to approve the minutes of March 2nd, 2020.
I'll second. All those,
I will second.
she really can't hear me. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, we
Aye.
have to call the roll.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And if you,
Abstain.
traditionally, we abstain
Right.
if we weren't there, which is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so Select Board Member Brown.
Abstain.
Okay. Select Board Member Roundtree Olaf.
Abstain.
I'll vote aye. Select Board Chair Papakosendis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Gilman.
Aye.
Great. We don't have any appointments tonight. Oh, the minutes are approved for the Select Board meeting of March 2nd, 2020. We have no appointments. And discussion action items, the review of the town ballot voting results. Mr. Dean, did you want to quickly review the?
Sure. So we did have our town election last Tuesday, and actually probably very fortunate because a lot of Friday was spent by other communities juggling their town meeting, which quite a few of them have been postponed and moved. So we did have ours, and the short version of the warrant is that every article on the warrant passed. The budget passed, with the exception of one, Article 4, which was the rec park, which got so much conversation during the election season. And we did have our budget approved by a 65% to 35% margin, so that was a pretty good margin for the operating budget. The water and sewer budgets both passed with more than 65% acceptance. And then the majority of the warrant articles actually passed by pretty healthy percentages, I would say, varying between 53 at the low to probably 74% at the top, 78% for one of them, one of the smaller items. The MUND, the mixed-use neighborhood district that I know the planning board had worked so diligently on, was adopted under Article 1 of the zoning amendments, so that was productive. The Swampscott sewer siphons project was approved by almost 72% of the vote, and the West Side Drive design engineering project was approved by 77% of the vote. So in general, I would say that, as I said, most of the articles were overwhelmingly supported, and of course the big capital item did not garner enough. That was the rec park. So as I've said during budget season, and I said many times, our facility issues are with us. We're a little distracted right now with what we've got on our plate, but those are issues that we're going to have to continue to work on and come up with a next step plan.
And I would further comment that once we get through this crisis, and we will, we still have the need of our seniors, and we still have the need of a very aged and somewhat dangerous Planet Playground. So somewhere down the line, we'll have to revisit this with Parks and Rec. Regarding the ballot and the warrant articles, comment or questions from the board? Okay, seeing none.
I will add real quick that we don't have a timetable for Lincoln Street parking yet, but we are working on that. Again, as a project, we know that's in the queue, and we don't know when, but it's on our list now that it has been successfully voted in.
Great, thank you. Moving on, we have the 2020 paving schedule. Jay, I don't know, did you want to speak to this? Thank you.
Jay Perkins. We received a very good offer from a contractor that's been working for us since back in the 60s, I believe. And they've always done a great job. And the only thing I wanted to add to this, if the market continues to go down and the price of liquid asphalt cement goes down, they will reflect that. They will come back in.
Okay.
Renegotiate that price.
Okay.
But I would recommend going with Bell and Flynn for our
Okay.
paving contract this year.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Questions? I'll look for a motion then to recommend extending the contract with Bell and Flynn for the paving.
So moved.
I'll second. Select Board Member Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Olaf. Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
I told her to mute because she was making noise.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the motion?
Motion is to approve, recommend extending the paving relationship with Bell and Flynn.
I say aye.
And I say aye. It's 5-0.
I heard that.
I'll ask wishes of the board for the sake of looking at the schedule. We have Mr. Sharples here. Would the board have a problem moving ahead to the tap easement and then going back to the select? Okay, seeing no objection. Mr. Sharples?
Thank you. You have Dave Sharples, Town Planner. You have, well, a couple of you have, Nico, you do, and Molly, I put a suggested motion looking for the tap easements to acquire some land and easements to complete the Transportation Alternatives Program sidewalk project we've had in the works for several years here on a portion of Epping Road, Spring Street, and Winter Street. You have had the RSA, the procedure for acquiring land is you have to have 2 public hearings, not less than 10, not more than 14 days apart. You had those on March, well, in February.
February 18th and March 2nd.
Yeah, and then March 2nd, thank you, Mr. Chair. And so then you can vote on acquiring the easements not less than 7, not more than 14 days after the second public hearing, which brings you to tonight's window. I have provided a motion. The motion basically authorizes the town manager to execute the easements and acquire the land that's needed to complete the sidewalk project. And I gave you a plan set in the original packets, but you were predating you. All the landowners are on board. They've already signed the offer agreements, so they're already in acceptance of us acquiring. This is just the last step to authorize the town manager to execute those easements so we can pay them the fair market value that we've agreed upon and sign the easements and get those executed and move forward with the project.
So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I move to authorize the town manager to execute any and all documents to acquire the land and easements shown on the easement plan by Hoyle, Tanner and Associates dated 2/21/2020 that are necessary to complete the Transportation Alternatives Program sidewalk project, federal project number X-A004, parens 611, and parens on Epping Road, Winter Street, and Spring Street.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, by roll call, Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye. Approved 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sharples. Next, we have the 2020 Committee Select Board Representatives. Each board and committee with the town does have a select board representative, and I think you'll see in your packet the 2019 representatives, and we will now go through the different boards and committees and assign the 2020 representatives. I'll open it up for discussion on each, I guess. Or-
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's start with the planning board. I was the 2019 representative. I will not be this year, obviously, being the chair of the select board, so I will open it up to anybody on the board that is interested.
I'm interested.
Okay. Any other,
Which one is that?
planning board?
Planning board.
Okay.
Do you want it, Julie?
I'm afraid it conflicts with too many things.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
okay.
Okay. Any other interest in the planning board by any other board members? Okay, seeing none, do we need to,
Do we vote on
do we
it?
move these, Russ? Do we have to vote? Or,
Can do it by consensus.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's a roll call, or?
No, I think we can
just-
just
okay.
say,
It's okay.
yeah, it's okay. All right.
Okay. Selectwoman Cowan, we should also have a
An
backup, an alternate to the planning board in the event, because they do meet regularly. It's the second and fourth Thursday of every month.
Lovey?
I see a little twinkle in that eye.
It's just the lotion, antiseptic lotion. Yeah, I'll be your second.
Introduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have Selectman Brown as the alternate, okay. Next, we have the Recreation Advisory Board, which, Ms. Cowan, you served on in 2019, and I would ask your interest in 2020.
I would happily continue the service with also the expectation and welcome for anybody to come. It's a fun group. And it's certainly going to be working this year.
Is there any other interest in the Recreation Advisory Committee?
I'd have interest in assisting.
That'd
There'd
be
be an
great.
alternate? Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I mean, I would be, yes.
Next, we have the Conservation Commission, and Julie, you served on that as the Select Board rep last year.
Yep.
Do you have interest in?
I'd be okay keeping that unless someone else wants it. It conflicts once in a while with voting day, but we don't have too many after, we only have 2. So if somebody else is interested, that's great, but otherwise I'll take it up.
Any other interest?
I can be a second.
Alternate? Okay, great, thank you. The Economic Development, that was,
That's actually the chair of the
Okay.
board by fiat.
And it doesn't ever meet, so
Isn't that nice?
it's,
lucky me.
and I actually did not have the Heritage Commission. I think it was Kathy.
I would be happy to take it. It does sometimes conflict, but it is allowed by state RSA, so I would be happy to take it back.
Any other interest in the Heritage Commission?
Actually, I've been going to the meetings anyway.
Okay. Seeing none. And then Julie, the HDC, you were the Select Board rep last year?
I was not, but I would love to have it again.
Who was the HDC? Was that,
Or maybe that one was Kathy.
Kathy.
that was Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. Any interest from any other of the board members? Okay. Julie, that's yours. The Rockingham Planning Commission?
I am appointed to that by virtue of being a state rep.
Okay.
So if we want someone else to do that, or be listed, that would be fine, but it's not necessary.
Any interest from other board members?
I'm looking ahead.
Going once, twice? Okay, seeing, Daryl?
Yes.
That's a yes, you have interest?
Yes,
Okay.
interest, yeah.
Well, I think, so she's already on it, so
Right.
we could have a select board member too.
Actually, I'll pass.
Okay.
Take that back, yeah.
They only meet once in a while.
So next we have
And it's
Swayze.
good stuff.
I'm sorry, Molly.
I was just trying to talk him into it. It's fine.
I'll pace myself.
Let's move on.
Swayze Park trustee, that is wide open for anyone interested.
It's a non-voting member.
How often, I'm just curious, how often?
Swayze Park's once a month or twice a month?
Regular meetings once a month.
You could do that.
Okay. Any other,
David's the,
There you go.
yeah, I like David.
any other interest? Okay, it's yours.
Yay.
Okay, skipping down, the Communication Advisory Committee, Ms. Cowan, you had that?
I did have that. It conflicts often.
Okay.
It's usually Tuesday mornings. It's a really great group, and I think that there's a lot of.
No need to sell it, I'll take it.
I would be delighted to come with you when I can. That's kind of what Kathy and I did. Great.
Thank you. The E911 committee,
What is that?
which was,
It's,
Let's all jump on that one.
it's basically literally the worst thing you could possibly do, which is to vote to change people's street names. It's,
although how often, they don't meet very
That's
often.
a great sales
do
pitch.
they?
I know.
Right, and then the hate
it's-
mail when they don't get their mail.
It's an incredibly
I'm gonna
important
pass on that.
function of government, but
It's essential to public safety.
essential to public safety.
You
but-
are essential to public safety.
Is Brown Street already taken, or is it?
You said Brown Street. Everything's going to be Brown Street by the end of.
It's, and I think we're almost done
They don't meet
with
very,
renaming the
right?
streets, though.
They don't meet often.
We are fairly well along in the process,
Okay.
Yeah.
so I wouldn't suggest that it's,
Almost done? So
I
that
was
a
told, I
terrible
was
thing for
told
me.
this year would not be as aggressive as the last, as the to-do list shrunk a little bit. More than a little
So
bit.
is that interest from you, Lovey?
Which one?
E911?
No.
No.
I mean, I would actually happily do it. I just can't remember when they meet.
Tuesday
thank you for
mornings
asking.
at 9, I think, is the typical time.
Is it once a month?
I think it's random.
It's random? I mean, I would take it if nobody else wants it. It is, I'll take it.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah?
Okay.
And I think they can be a little bit, in the last conversations I've had with Dave about this, they can be a little bit more staggered meetings if need be. Because I know this is a big list. So the E911, they can stagger their meetings to accommodate, once every couple of months, they do a few things and then bring those things to the select board.
Okay. Julie, the Energy Committee?
Yes,
That's a yes, you still want to serve?
yes.
Okay. Any other interest?
Yeah, if anybody or new folks who I welcome want to serve on any of these, please take them away.
We will.
Okay, next is the Facilities Committee, and I would open that up to somebody new.
I'll take it.
Okay. Any other interest? Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Housing Advisory Committee. Molly, that was previously yours?
It was, I would also, I mean, this also conflicts often.
Okay.
It's a really interesting committee, but I would either,
I think I see Bruce.
I'm interested, but I also want to make sure that I don't have a conflict of interest.
it's the third Friday.
Well, a personal conflict of interest.
Oh, I
being
see.
that my dad lives in.
No,
No? Okay. So then it's the, what day is it?
it's the third Friday of every month,
A Friday.
in the morning.
Okay.
8:30 to 10, I think.
We can make that, I mean, I could get the kids off. I might be a couple minutes late. Is that?
No, it actually works perfectly. Well, where do your kids, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you,
I shall
Lovey.
take that.
The River Advisory Committee, which is a outgoing member, had that.
Does that even mean?
Russ, when do they meet? Do you remember?
Thursdays at 3 p.m.,
Any interest for the River Advisory Committee?
once a month, one Thursday a month at 3 o'clock.
I can't ever do it.
If nobody else wants it, I'll take it. I'll take it, okay. The Sustainability Advisory Committee, it's a new committee that started this year. I was the select board rep. I would keep it unless anybody really wants to be on it. Don't all rush at me at once. Okay, I'll keep it. And the Water Sewer Advisory Committee, they meet quarterly, right?
Yeah, sometimes less, and I would, unless there's serious interest, I would keep it.
Yeah, okay.
We are talking about, I mean,
Because is there helpfulness for continuity with some of these committees where you've,
I think
right,
so.
so.
I think so, but I also don't want to keep everything.
You're not stealing the thunder. I live off of well water, so really, like, I might not even.
No, I'm just kidding. But-
No, I'm happy to keep it.
But
Okay.
there's also, are there more committees on here that aren't currently listed on this document?
These are currently all the active committees.
Active committees,
Okay.
right?
That's not to say that there won't be others. I mean, for the last year, have wanted to bring to the board a committee that I was going to propose, or a commission. I was unable to, and I still plan to do it. It's been sitting on my desk for quite
Okay.
some time. I just don't think now, we have other things to work on, but it will be on the agenda in the future. It's a cultural commission that I would like to propose to the board, and we can do so once we start to get a little bit stable.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
And I can see your interest in it already. Okay.
Right, I'd just add too that the board policy that you've worked under in the past has been, or is the current policy, is that each year you take a look at your committees in general. And so this is the most recent list because it reflected the most recent select board. But if there are changes you want to make other than statutory committees that exist because of state law or town meeting creation or some other avenue, that's an option for you too. Because I know that what I say is everybody's time is valuable. I understand that. I'm not saying disband any committees per se, but just that is an annual review that it would be normal to go through and kind of benchmark and say, okay, where is this committee? Where is it? How is it doing? That sort of thing. Is it worth keeping? And
So could I
so
ask
forth.
that? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, that was it.
So could I ask a question?
Of course.
About the Facilities Advisory Committee, is that statutory?
That was created by the board.
Do we want to have discussions, not that I'm trying to reduce my load at all, but do we want to have discussion about the viability of that later, or is this the time for that, or can we wait?
It's not on tonight's agenda, so I think it would be in context of another night with like a
Okay.
fuller discussion around all of the different
Great.
groups. Yeah.
But we can put that on a future agenda. Okay.
And Nancy Belanger texted me and reminded me that it's the second Friday, not the third. I'm sorry, Nancy, and everybody else. It's fine.
Which one was that?
The housing
The Housing
advisory.
Advisory. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you, Nancy.
You got the
I
message.
know, thank you, Nancy.
Next on our agenda are the tax abatements and veterans credits, and typically, this is read by the clerk, but Julie, for the sake of, I don't mind reading them.
Or I can do them, and then you can call the roll.
Sure,
I
okay,
think we have to vote on all of them, right?
okay. But remember, you can lump
Yeah.
the ones, okay.
I move to approve a veterans credit in the amount of $500 for MAP 75, Lot 17, Unit 33.
Second,
I'll second.
Selectman Brown,
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf,
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman,
Aye.
and I say aye.
I move to approve an elderly exemption in the amount of $236,251 for the following: MAP 95, Lot 64, Unit 267, MAP 95, Lot 64, Unit 338.
Second. All those in favor, Selectman Brown,
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf,
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman,
Aye.
and I say aye.
I move to approve an elderly exemption in the amount of $152,251 for the following: MAP 65, Lot 124, Unit 10, MAP 89, Lot 14, and MAP 87, Lot 14, Unit 15A.
Second.
All those in favor, Selectman Brown,
Abstain.
Selectwoman Olaf,
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman,
Aye.
I say aye. It's 4-0 with one abstention.
I move to approve an elderly exemption in the amount of $183,751 for MAP 68, Lot 6, Unit 421.
Second. Selectman Brown,
Abstain.
Selectwoman Olaf,
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye, it's 4-0 with one abstention.
I move to approve a blind exemption in the amount of $15,000 for MAP 96, Lot 15.
Second. Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye, 5-0.
I move a denial of abatements in the following properties: MAP 73, Lot 13, Unit 1, MAP 113, Lot 5, and MAP 93, Lot 64, Unit 37.
One correction, it's MAP 95, I think.
Oh, MAP 90, the last one.
Yep.
MAP 95, Lot 64, Unit 37.
Second. Selectman Brown?
Abstain.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Abstain.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
I have to abstain also.
And I'll abstain.
Does it mean the abatement is approved?
The chair has to answer.
I didn't hear the question.
The chair has to vote, you mean, or?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll change my vote to aye.
Okay. Well,
How many abstentions are there?
there were three.
3, so the vote is 2-0-3?
Yeah. That's not a majority vote.
No.
So does it mean the,
It's a majority of those who didn't abstain.
It means a second motion must be made.
Can we have a brief conversation?
sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's, please.
Okay, great. Just want to be throwing out.
So we don't even know what the,
Do we know anything about this, Russ?
This is 95, 64, 37.
37.
and 73, 13-1, and 113-5.
Those should be in the folder.
Okay.
Does it indicate why there was a denial? in the-
There's a conflict.
Okay.
Is that? It can happen.
Can you tell me what's happening?
I'm looking for the paperwork.
Nico is looking for the paperwork for why the abatements were denied.
Okay.
Okay. For the map 95, lot 64, unit 37, the rationale for the denial was the Human Services Department determined the applicant's income, including expenses, is above maximum allowed. Therefore, it is recommended that the Select Board deny the application for the abatement. In the matter of map 73, lot 13, unit 1, excuse me while I read this. It looked as if the revised 2019 assessment would by statute reflect a revised assessment relative to the sale price. The prop,
Chair,
yes.
In reviewing the town's plan, I can change my vote. I
Okay.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
we can just do a whole new vote. I mean, do you just want to revote?
so could we do a new motion?
Yes. Can we?
You'll have to rescind.
I'm only going to make the same one, so,
Yes,
which
that's
I don't
fine.
think.
Did you motion and second and actually have a vote
Yeah.
on it already?
I will move
But it
to
was the
reconsider
203 vote?
motion for denial.
Okay.
Right, I think I personally needed clarification before going ahead and denying.
There's a motion to reconsider the original motion?
Second,
Okay.
so moved. A motion to reconsider.
All those in favor, Selectman Brown?
The motion is to reconsider?
The motion is to reconsider the initial
Aye.
motion. Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye. So that was for, then we
Now,
have
Vote, I guess.
3 more to read.
Okay. I move an abatement in the amount of $709.74 for map 83, lot 39.
Second. Selectman Brown?
Abstain.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
I say aye, it's 4-0, 1 abstention.
I move an abatement in the amount of $30.25 for map 68, lot 6, unit 115.
Second. Selectman Brown?
Abstain.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I vote aye, it's 4-0, 1 abstention.
I move an abatement in the amount of $451.44 for map 24, lot 5.
Second. Selectman Brown?
Abstain.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye, it's 4-0, 1 abstention. I think that's all of those. Okay, we don't have any,
Mr. Chair?
yes,
Before you move on, I just want to update you on state legislation dealing with exemptions. We had several bills that came in with particular slices of demographics to afford exemptions to. And my committee, the Municipal County Government Committee, found that there was just getting to be too many slices of the demographics that would leave very few of us on property taxes. So they've been recommended to be inexpedient to legislate, and on Thursday that was approved.
okay. Did everybody hear that? Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
There were 2 sort of more lengthy abatements in the packet. Actually, one was an abatement for a request for 163 C4 Water Street, and I don't know if everyone's had a chance to see that one yet or not. I mean, you can hold it until your next meeting if you want to, if you haven't had a chance to read all the way through it. Mr. Leach from Billingsgate was the one who submitted the request.
Right, it was in the attachment in the
Right.
packet.
So I don't know if you had a chance to read that or not, but that was in the packet as well.
Is the board comfortable with discussing and/or voting on that tonight?
I am. I took a look at it before we got here today.
Selectman Brown?
Yes, I'm ready.
Selectwoman Cowan?
I can't find it right
It
now.
was,
Oh, was it? It was in
in
Pam's
what Pam
email.
sent.
That's right.
Yeah.
I read it a million years ago, it feels like. I remember.
Are you comfortable deliberating on that tonight, or would you rather
Yeah,
wait?
that's fine.
Okay. Russ, do you have a copy of it there?
I do.
Can you walk us through this, Russ? And I will just say that I object to being called sirs.
it's not a good start.
It's not a good start.
So there was an error in a plan that had been used for an assessment, and essentially it was a piece of a basement that was incorrectly attributable to Mr. Leach, and I think it was 400 square feet. So when that correction got made within the assessor's office and the correct plan was used, it resulted in a change to the value. But as the assessor's position on it, MRI's position on it, is that the property was recently sold for X amount of dollars, and it far exceeds the assessed valuation either direction. So their recommendation was to not grant the abatement. I just want to make sure the board understands you could, as it says in the memo, you can go back a year, 2 years maybe, if you wanted to. It's an option for you to consider. So that's why I at least wanted to mention that to you. The assessor's opinion is their official opinion. That is how they view it. So I don't know if the board wants to take action on it, think about it a little bit, come back to it at a subsequent meeting. I know Mr. Leach is anxious for an answer, and that is the assessor's recommendation, so.
Okay. Wishes of the board?
I'm just curious how this was missed. So this change happened within the last year and was only noticed when the sale of the building took place, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Is the board more comfortable tabling this one till the next meeting?
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to make a rash decision.
Right.
because especially he's been a business owner for so long in town.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I always say, I know since we have 2 new board members, on occasion in the past it's happened where the board has looked at an abatement and said, oh, I think I need to have some more information, and that's fine. And we typically will table it until the member has a chance to talk to the assessor and get maybe a deeper perspective on it, and then we bring it back to the next meeting, and usually by that time things are sorted out to the point where you need to. So
I'd feel more comfortable with that.
So is the board comfortable bringing this back at the next March meeting?
I'm comfortable. I mean, I am uncomfortable if we are, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that we're thinking about denying something that was our mistake in the first place. But I am also very comfortable tabling it and acting on it in March. Julie?
Mr. Chair, I would move to table the question until our next meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye. The matter's tabled till the next meeting.
And the next issue, or the last one, is with Mr. Peak of the MCM Realty Trust. So you can see in his application, basically he submitted an abatement form, but it's not really an abatement, it is an interest waiver, because what happened in this instance was Mr. Peak called the town and said that he never received his first tax bill from the town. We looked into that pretty deeply, couldn't really see where that may have happened. So this is one of those instances where we kind of shrug our shoulders. We didn't get a return on anything. We believe we mailed it out, but again, you know, it's possible that something happened. And we didn't hear from him until the second half bill when the new tax rate was applied to his properties. He paid the entire bill right away, but by that time, about $1,500 in interest had built up. So he owns several properties in the community. So the request there is to just, anything over $25, I have to bring to the select board as the tax collector for you to review and authorize waiver of. So if you are comfortable with it, I will waive the interest unless you have some other thoughts.
Thoughts from the board?
Only question is, the tax bill comes out the same time every year to businesses. How long has he owned a business in town?
It's a
Private, how long has he owned the properties?
Oh, for quite a while.
I mean, I tend to think the same way when you know you get
I'm
your
just
bill.
trying to think
Right,
logically, but
right.
I understand if he also paid it immediately and, you know, I err on the side of
I mean,
kindness.
and his
First time.
right, and it's weird to say, well, when I receive something, I pay it, so therefore I must not have received it. Like, I don't know.
The burden is not on us.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with, yeah, the burden is not on the town.
I mean, I know when you get a bill every year, like, I've done that with my life insurance bill. When it hasn't come, I pick up the phone and call the agent and say I didn't get my, want to make sure I pay it, so. Julie, did you have any thoughts?
Julie?
I was muted.
Oh.
Not at this time.
Okay.
My only other question is, historically speaking, how often does this happen and what has been the pattern before with other, I didn't get my bill and...
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember an instance.
It is very rare, but I think in the past we have taken the position that it was not, the burden was on the owner, not the town.
Is the board comfortable deliberating tonight?
To my knowledge, I did submit, I think, a historical payment pattern where I think that, or I did check into it a bit, and there had not been any issues in the past.
Okay.
So this was a first-time thing. We did research it to some degree, and it hadn't happened before, so. But.
Okay.
I also, I mean, and I'm just throwing this, I mean, does this set a precedent for future, if it doesn't happen often, but I'm always leery of setting precedent.
Right, because
Right.
then it'll become the annual, I missed my payment grace period for all late
Right. And
taxpayers.
I pay my bills as soon as they arrive, therefore you didn't send it to me.
And this payment will be deductible on its federal, like this is a deductible amount elsewhere, right? So,
And it concerns me that there are multiple properties, in that I think you're even more conscious of the multiple bills that need to be paid for multiple properties. I could be making assumptions about that, but just getting all sorts of popular points.
No, I don't think it's the town's responsibility. And I
agree.
And it sounds, Julie, like this is a precedent that you all have followed before. I think she's on mute again.
Yeah, she's coming
Julie?
back. Julie's
Okay.
paying her taxes.
No, she's checking.
Sorry, I muted myself and then went back to my email, so.
If you,
This happened a couple of times, and, you're at a standoff with, yes, we sent it, and no, I didn't receive it. And in all good faith, we have operated in all good faith to send the bills out.
So I'll move to deny the motion of waiving the taxes for Mr. Peak.
second.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
Aye.
And I say aye. It's 5-0. Okay. Seeing no others, we don't have any permits or approvals tonight, so town manager's report. If you have anything other than what we've talked about tonight, just consumed all of your time.
I don't think so, between the town election last week and what has current business, no, I don't have anything further. I do have a Health Trust meeting tomorrow, and for those of you who are new, I'm on the board of the Health Trust, and actually was in between everything, went up to Concord last Wednesday. There was a proposed amendment about reserves for the Health Trust, but after a little bit of sort of high alarm, ready to go, drive up and testify, the amendment never materialized. So my testimony went from 5 minutes to about 30 seconds, which I know the Senate committee enjoyed. But a Health Trust, the meeting tomorrow, one of the reasons I'm mentioning it to the board is that because we're actually doing it under the emergency 91A rules that have been approved by the governor and the Attorney General, which are excuse me, the meeting itself will be all electronic, and we will all be calling in, and it will be Health Trust, 2 members of the Health Trust staff, the executive director and the attorney from Health Trust at managing the call-in site. So I just wanted to mention that to you just to understand the way that Right to Know has been temporarily modified in the instance of the COVID-19 issues. So,
Great, thank you. Select Board Committee reports. Molly, did you have any?
I did. I attended a Housing Advisory Committee where we're sort of in the middle of stalled and figuring out how to finish a project in terms of looking at what multifamily housing looks like in the town, it's going to be a really cool deliverable. It's just, there's a couple snags here or there in terms of producing the product, but it's going to be available, and I think it's going to be really helpful in telling the story of what it looks like. And then I actually also had a Water and Sewer Advisory Committee where we talked through a bunch of abatements. Please, if DPW, this is a general announcement, please, if DPW contacts you that your water usage is unusually high, pay attention and let them come do a leak check, because with the increase in water and sewer bills, it's going to be imperative that you follow their directions and instructions, so you're not hit with a really surprise bill.
Great, thank you. And in fact, that happened to me this fall, and immediately called my plumber, and he found the source, so. Selectwoman Gilman, did you have any committee reports?
No, my committees were all canceled for March. I would like to thank everyone who came out at the voting day. It was really appreciated, both workers and voters. I love to see you all. I wanted to ask Selectwoman Cowan about the next Housing Advisory Committee, because there are several bills that pass through the House and need to go to the Senate that have to do with affordable housing. And I'd like to see if I can present to the committee or hear from the committee on them.
I think that would be really great and really useful. Nancy is a wonderful chair of the committee, so I'm sure just coordinate with her. Let me just check and make sure when the next meeting is, because I know it's on my calendar. And then if it's even happening. So it should be Friday, April 10th, which maybe it'll happen.
That'll probably be fine, given the situation that we're in right now and the postponement of legislation happening at the State House, that we want to contact our senators rather sooner than later, and so we'll have some time.
Okay, and Nancy just texted, and she will be in touch with you tomorrow.
Excellent.
And thanks, Nancy, for being such an alert citizen.
The planning board meeting last Thursday was canceled, so I don't have any other committee reports to present. Correspondence, we had one correspondence in accordance with the lease agreement between the town and the Exeter Sportsman's Club. They issued their annual report to the select board for 2019-2020. And with that, we'll review the board calendar. The next scheduled meeting is March 30th, and after that, April 13th, and then April 27th, looking at the next 3 meetings. Obviously, Mr. Dean, if we need to meet in the meantime, or extra meetings due to the ongoing crisis, we'll make those arrangements?
Yes.
Okay. And we don't have any non-public session tonight. Any other comments from the board? Questions from the board? I would like to welcome both of you again, and I'm looking forward to working with you. And thank you again for your nomination tonight, and thank you for your patience. I'm out of my comfort zone of the Novak room, and out of my comfort zone of not seeing Selectwoman Gilman, so we'll be a little smoother next time. This time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second?
All those in favor are Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Selectwoman Olaf?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Gilman?
That's you, Julie.
Checking her emails.
We're moving to adjourn.
Julie.
Sorry, okay, before I give my answer, I want to thank Selectwoman Corson and Sermon for their service to the town. I think we did a lot of progress in the time that I served with them, and it's greatly appreciated in their volunteerism and stepping up to the plate. Otherwise, I say yay.
Great, thank you, and I say, A, we're adjourned.